between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Barker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello, one and all, and welcome back. A brand new year and a brand new series. It's the AGON by AOC Mazda MX-5 Cup, round 1 at Laguna Seca, powered by VRRC. My name is Jack Oliphant, and I'm joined alongside me, as usual, by Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks a lot, Jack. Might have to get the WD-40 out and take a bit of rust off. First broadcast of the new year, but as always, very, very much looking forward to it. And a lot of very familiar faces in this one as well.
Yeah, plenty of familiar faces, which is nice because it means we can keep up to date with how their story's progressing and how they've improved as well throughout the basically 2021 and into 2022. The MX-5 itself will be a semi-familiar basis for what these drivers have been on in 2021 as well, especially for the Academy drivers. The Academy last year was split into 4 sections, each comprising of a different car, basically, over a 6-week period, and the MX-5 was one such car, so hopefully we're seeing a lot of experienced drivers out there this time round. However, one thing they might not be so experienced in is the specific tracks that we're going to. A few new ones thrown in here, although Laguna Seca, Red Bull Ring and Virginia are probably 3 circuits that they're probably quite used to. One that I'm still yet to learn to pronounce, Dave, is Vallelunga. Not entirely sure how I'm going to say that. We'll have to research before we get going. But Donington National and Brands Hatch should be also 2 that they're very familiar with.
Yeah, Vallelunga, a great track. You know, very, very technical middle section, but real fast and flowy outer. And then for me, Virginia Raceway, VIR. What a finale of a track that is. That is going to be an absolute peach of a round to go to. Super fast and flowy, massive commitment. And we've done a little fun race there in previous weeks. And I tell you what, everyone that didn't know the track definitely knows the track now, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, it's probably good to have those little fun races, just to get that little bit of extra practice in, even if you are obviously racing in, say, a little Fiat 500 a Bath or something. Anyway, on to what we've got going on tonight, and some prizes that we've got to speak of as well over the next 6 weeks. The drivers will be competing for a pair of OBP Motorsport hydraulic pedals, some of the best simulator pedals you can access on the market today. They're very similar, I believe, to the ones that are in the Mini Challenge as well, in the real-life Mini Challenge series. So be sure to be keeping an eye out for them and who's gunning for them. Second place, though, in my opinion, I'd actually prefer this one. The AGON 34-inch curved gaming display. A beautiful monitor, it has to be said. We use them on the sim chassis in the truck whenever we go to the BTCC or TCR rounds in the simulated truck here at VRRC, and they are stunning as well. And if you want to go for third place, and that's all fair enough, you get 2 VIP tickets with Motus One for the British GT Championship. So you can go and have hospitality tickets in the British GT paddock with Motus One. Absolutely brilliant. So 3 fantastic prizes, plenty to be gunning for. And I believe, Dave, that's the same for gold class, and it's the same for silver.
Yeah, a massive prize pool here, and as you say, some great prizes with a lot of opportunity for drivers to go and win themselves a bit of product. But it's not an easy task. A full reverse grid for the second race. Obviously, you'll get a bit onto the structure of the race, but that is not going to make it easy for anyone, especially someone does really well in race 1. Race 2, they're all the way at the back, and they've got it all to do again.
Yeah, we will get on to the structure, obviously. We did briefly bring it up before. Qualifying's about to kick in, so I think it's probably about fair that we bring up that explanation of the format again, because obviously we sort of bypassed it. So if our fantastic broadcaster, Tom O'Farrell, can just bring up the track map, maybe, and the qualifying and the structure of the day again, we'll be able to get that going. But essentially what it is a 15-minute qualifying plus 2 20-minute races, and like you said, Dave, that second 20-minute race is actually a full reverse grid. We've played around before where it's just top 10 reverse grid. To be honest, it's a lot more exciting when you just stick the full reverse grid up there and just see what the drivers can do, because at the end of the day, they should all be able to handle themselves, and it gives us an opportunity to see some potentially different variations on podium sitters.
Yeah, you know what? We've played around with ballast, we've played around with top 10, but you've got to remember there's 2 classes in this race. There's gold and silver. So if you had a silver driver who managed to get his way up into 10th place, then what's going to essentially happen is you're going to end up with the second race where a silver guy will be promoted to the front of the grid. Meanwhile, the second place silver has about 9 or 10 gold cars separate them. So it just gives too much of an advantage for a reverse 10. So the only fair way of doing it is to either hinder with massive amount of ballast, which gets very complicated with dual classes, or the easy option and proven to be fantastic racing, I think you'd agree, Jack, it's just to reverse the full grid and let them battle it out.
Yeah, exactly. Stop all the tactics and just let them go for it at the end of the day. Right, we've got the track pans. You know what's going to be going down over the next couple of hour or 2. Let's have a look at Laguna Seca in an MX-5, a hot lap by Dave Marshall.
So across the line here for round 1 of VRRC's MX-5 Cup at Laguna Seca, down towards turn 1, 5th gear, brake as hard as we can, down to 2nd gear, really quite aggressively to try and get a bit of rotation on the rear end. You might see drivers doing that in 3rd, just comes down to driver preference. Now down to turn 3, just coursing it in, no brake needed, just trying to carry as much momentum through the corner as possible. Turn 4, completely flat, just try not to run it as wide as possible. You can see the sand on the outside there, and you dip a wheel into there, and it really scrubs your speed into turn 5, which is a really good overtaking opportunity. You can see the amount of camber in the corner, so you can run it nice up the inside of another car and use that camber to slow down and rotate that car. Turn 6, absolutely flat and committed, very blind on approach. Crucial that you stay flat out, because you can see how steep this uphill section is and will leave you vulnerable if you're not committed. Into the corkscrew, very, very hard to spot the line through here. The key is going a little bit slower, but carry the speed through and down the hill. You can see big commitment here, just hoping the car holds on and not pushing too far wide. The car gets really quite loose going into the second to last corner there, nearly running out of track there, but luckily not. off, down to second gear, last corner, very easy to overcut after the rest of the track being so high speed. And that is a lap of Laguna Seca. Make sure you tune in on Tuesday night on VRRC's YouTube for what Cass said.
And we are back in the room, and the specific room we're in is, of course, the corkscrew, the iconic corner here at Laguna Seca. It's going to be catching a few drivers out, I'm sure, Dave, with these sort of low-powered rear-wheel drive MX-5s. They don't spin the wheels up too often, but sometimes going through a corner like that, they can just catch you out.
Yeah, you know what? They're actually an extremely difficult car to drive. A lot of people think low power, not bags of grip. These aren't running on full slicks. They're just sort of a controlled semi-slick tyre, if you like. And actually, it makes it extremely difficult. That car starts to slide out, and you just don't have the grunt to spin them wheels up and sort of control that drift outwards to have a really quite aggressive snap on the car. So if you see any cars getting a bit of nose to rear contact and slight spin, honestly, the car control you have to keep the car pointing in a straight line is very, very difficult indeed. Then also you come to a track like Laguna Seca, because the cars have got less than 200 horsepower, if you're too hard on the brakes and scrub too much speed going off into them corners, you don't have the power or the grunt to get the car back up to that speed, so you lose what you think is probably half a tenth in any other car, and by the end of the straight you've lost 2/10. So it's a very difficult car to keep the flow of. The same with steering input. You wind too much steering lock on through the corner, and yet again you're scrubbing a tenth off your speed. So there's a real art to driving these cars, and on board at the moment with Eric Axelsson from Sweden, I believe he is, and if I'm honest, he seems to have this car absolutely underneath him, going ridiculously fast in timed practice. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can put that on the board when the pressure's on in qualifying.
Yeah, I was looking forward to the MX-5, to be honest. I didn't get to cover it in the academy, but it is actually one of the few cars that we run here on VRRC that I can actually talk about a little bit, because the characteristics are identical to the cars that I usually used to race in real life, in the Ginetta G40s. And I can never talk about the Clio Cups and the characteristics, or the Minis, or the Audi TTs, or the Formula 4s, or anything like that, because I've never driven them. And I can't get the hang of front-wheel drive. But these ones, I can actually relate to a little bit. So I'm looking forward to actually using some of my motorsport knowledge and actually be able to sort of apply that to this series. But like you mentioned, a couple of new drivers. Eric Axelsson is one of those drivers. He greens Sector 1 and not quick enough in Sector 2 or 3, but... And although we say he's quite quick and everything like that, 6/10 is the difference between himself and Jack McIntyre, who is obviously a driver that we know very well. Unfortunately, didn't finish the Super Tourings last year, at the back end of last year in December, but he's back with a bang in the MX-5s by the looks of it. Maybe he's been out practicing, because he seems to be absolutely flying.
Yeah, he is flying indeed. And actually, it was touched upon across Tom, the broadcaster. He actually noticed that the previous championship that we did at League of Champions, I don't know if you remember it, Jack, the last round was MX-5s round Laguna. Obviously, Jack competed in that, and it just shows he's really brought his A game. He's 2/10 faster than the fastest lap time that was done in that series. So, very, very impressive indeed. You can see there, just getting a little on the brake, getting it on its nose, and just turn it into that second to last corner. I was just saying, during the hot lap there, it is a particularly hard corner to get. Tricks you into it, thinking you can get on the throttle a lot earlier than you can. But the problem with these cars is, you get on that throttle a little bit too early and have to back out. There's another 10 lost at the end of the straight. So, yeah. Very, very difficult track. Jack Smith going very, very quick indeed. Within 2/10. This is going to be a fantastic race. With, you can see, Eric Axelsson, Jack Smith, Jack Mack really leading the pace in this race. But I tell you what, come that first corner, who the world is going to come out first, I do not know.
Well, Eric Axelsson has just come across the line, and he's gone within 2/10 of a second of Jack McIntyre now. So we were talking obviously about a big gap of 6/10. That's been whittled down somewhat as Jack McIntyre has taken to the pit lane. 7.5 minutes to go on this qualifying is plenty of time for these drivers to get out. Come back in, get out on a fresh set of tyres, warm them up, and go for potentially 2 more flying laps. But we're starting to see the real quick times coming along. Nathan Blank's just set his PB, as well as Brad Smith. So Nathan Blank in 4th position, overtaking Carl Felbus on that lap as well, which obviously is no mean feat. There is a gold and there is a silver category. I'm not sure if we've got it. We haven't, unfortunately, got it presented on the timing tower today. And I don't think we've got it presented on our timing tower here. So what we'll probably do is be able to bring you up to date with that next time round, Dave, isn't it? Because we'll probably just treat this as if it's a 13-car grid with no gold and no silver, and we'll just go from there. And then next week, we'll see how it all pans out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll obviously able to have my input and tell you which drivers are gold and silver, so I can keep you relative within the championship. But at the end of the day, the championship point isn't really going to be relevant until next round out anyway. This is just, as you say, going to be almost a 13-car shootout until it gets into the next week's championship standings.
So Simon Reed, we're currently on board with, jumping up into 4th position. That's upsetting Nathan Blank and Carl Felbus, like we mentioned before. Kyle and Jack Smith both in the pit lane, by the way. That's what that pit P means. Jack Smith has just disappeared because he's out on the hard tyres. Right, so Simon Reed, the reason why we're focusing on him, he's got the number 4 on his car. He's currently 4th place. That's not the coincidence that we were hoping to highlight, but it is a nice coincidence. No, the coincidence we're hoping to highlight is the fact that he's an MX-5 Academy champion. We mentioned before, Dave, that obviously we ran the MX-5s as in the Academy, a good 6 months ago now, I imagine. And Simon Reed is the one who came out on top, so it's no surprise, really, that he's come in swinging.
Yeah, he likes this car. He does like this car, and he does, you know, it's quite evident straight away. Start of qualifying, he's straight away on the pace. Remember, these are ridiculously quick times. Anything I would have said in the 37s, we are looking extremely fast paced. So the fact that more than half the grid is within that 37.5 is phenomenal pace out there. And also, I could be wrong in saying this, Jack, the easy way to tell gold class and silver class is by the door mirrors, I believe.
Yes, well, that's just been reminded, actually. Rich Hayden on our Discord, he just sent me a friendly reminder saying wing mirrors, and that really did spot. You can tell it's been a couple of weeks, can't you? But there we go. As we switch over to Nathan Blank, you can see the wing mirrors. Well, can't see them right now, but as the camera will change direction, you'll be able to see the wing mirrors are silver, and that is the easiest way to distinguish the silver and gold categories. So when you look at, say, Jack McIntyre's car, they'll obviously be gold, because I think just putting him in a silver category would just be frankly unfair. But that is probably the easiest way. As we see a snap of oversteer coming down the hill there, obviously these are all new. I think that was Nicky Taylor, actually, newly promoted into the gold category. There we go, is not just suiting his livery, he's actually a gold class driver now, and he is one of those drivers from silver category in the Super Touring last year and the Academy, Dave, that you just felt that you needed to bump up to that gold, because they were getting far too quick for their own good.
Yeah, you know what? The drivers will probably be looking at it going, you know what? This has made it so much harder. But at the end of the day, they need to take it as a compliment. They are driving so well and so within themselves at that level. They had to be promoted. They were, you know, at the top of their category every single race, racing without by a good few tenths. And you know, Nicky, I think he'll admit this himself, he's never been the strongest in outright qualifying pace, but come the race, he's one of the drivers to watch and can definitely get through a grid of cars in front of him, regardless of what pace they're on.
I'll be honest, I love watching Nicky Taylor. So
it's great, isn't it?
It is. Any time we get to see, and most of the time, because of the driver that he is and the aggressive nature that he does racing, but to be fair, mostly fair, he's gotten better at being sort of fair and consistent as well. It means he's on our cameras pretty much all the time. So if you're out there and you're a Nicky Taylor fan, you're probably going to be in for a treat this evening.
And you can't miss him in that car.
And you can't miss him, exactly. You're going to know which one he is, even in the background, aren't you? Jack McIntyre then coming across the line. It's a purple Sector 1, by the way. Sector 2, not so hot. What's Sector 3 going to be? Wow. It's not so hot. But that Sector 1 was so strong that it's actually eked out another 1/10 of a second ahead of Jack Smith and Eric Axelson, and obviously the rest of the field. But let's face it, I think it's a 3-horse race for potentially that pole position. Paul Laramie coming across the line, jumps over Jones and goes into the top 10 for now. But like we mentioned, full reverse grid, you get no prizes for being 10th place, even at the end of race 1, obviously. Qualifying, you just get 10th place as a reward. But in the end of race 1, we used to have it at top 10 reverse grid, so you'd want to be in 10th place. Now that full reverse grid means that really you're just trying to pull as many points from both races as you possibly can without any kind of tactics involved, I suppose. Paul Laramie, having said that, was really strong on that lap, and we're hoping to see more of Paul as we're going forward. He's one of the drivers that sort of improved quite a lot when I started, Dave, when I started the commentary with VRRC. Then maybe just stagnated just a touch. I'm hoping this MX-5, this sort of back to basics car, will be able to really push on strong, and he'll be actually able to push further up the order, maybe fight for the likes of Nicky Taylor and Brad Smith in that 7th and 8th position.
Yeah, and I think yet again, the same as Nicky Taylor, Paul Laramie never seems to almost pull out what he can actually do in qualifying, but in race trim, you're right, saw great improvement through the previous championships and really started to fight in packs a lot higher up than where he qualified. Another driver that we've got to touch upon, Nathan Blank. I mean, for me, so far, an absolute standout drive. Top of silver class at the moment. He's put the work in at an astonishing amount of laps in time practice. I believe it's probably approaching about 700 laps of this track. And I tell you what, it's fair to say it shows. Currently sitting P4, I mean, 1,000th ahead of Simon Reed in 5th place. But he has worked hard for that 4th place.
He has worked hard indeed. I mean, if you're going to put that amount of laps in, then you do expect to obviously have a pretty strong qualifying position at least. And obviously the disappointing thing sometimes in motorsport is the fact that you can have it hooked up, you can have the setup perfect, but then obviously there's a little bit of an upset maybe in lap 1 of a race, and that's the sort of thing where the highs and lows of motorsport can really kick you in the teeth, unfortunately. Obviously we're hoping for as clean a race as possible. Quite often in VRRC we see a very, very clean race because we do have a strict driver sort of set of codes, I suppose, that they are to be obeyed, and they sort of the driving standards needs to be on top performance because we do offer the fantastic prizes that we do. We want it as a fair shout for everyone. The last thing you want is for a driver to lose out on a potential prize because they've been hit off by a back marker that wasn't obeying the rules or being a bit foolish. I'm sure everybody who's ever raced in sim racing can appreciate how annoying that is, no matter what platform you've been on. So yeah, there's a very strict set of driver guidelines. Have a driver's briefing before every single event, as you'll know, Dave, and it's just laid out there and then, isn't it? Reminder about the driving standards.
Yeah, exactly that. And if someone breaks the rules, they pay the price for it. And you know what? It does lend itself to being really good, clean racing. And you're right, everyone here is for the right reasons. They all want to drive as fairly as they can, but vice versa, they all want to do as well as they can possibly do. And Eric Axelson, a last-minute ditch attempt, and he's gone pole by 500ths of a second over Jack Max. So literally pulling it out the bag when it mattered there.
Oh, I'm very much hoping that stands to reason, because that's a sensational third sector. I mean, he was slightly off in sector 1, but when I say slightly off, he was 3,000ths off. So really, he was bang on the money.
Yeah.
Sector 2 green, sector 3 purple. Axelson's come to play. All of a sudden, Jack McIntyre's got a headache, hasn't he? He's not on the front row. He was probably preparing his speech to come in for the driver interview, the pole position interview that we always have after qualifying. But now, Axelson pulling those punches, obviously earlier on in the session, has really come out swinging now strong, and I can't wait to hear from him. As we said, we think he's one of the new drivers in VRRC, so we're very much looking forward to seeing not only how he qualifies, but how he races with the likes of McIntyre and Smith. And for those of you wondering, Smith, one of the drivers that really came on strong in the Super Touring Championship at the back end of the Super Touring as well. So he came in strong. Now it's obviously a fixed setup, all the same car. We're hoping for big things from Jack Smith as well. Looking forward to it. Dave will be able to have a little chat to Eric Axelson, obviously, in a couple of minutes' time. But that is an absolutely stellar performance for himself.
That is, anything a sub 37 flat is a ridiculously fast time. So fair play, the likes of Jack Smith, Jack Mack, that is seriously fast.
It is indeed. And yeah, Adrian Felvers just on the YouTube chat reminding us that Carl got promoted to gold too. Yeah, we'll be going through all that. Don't you worry, Adrian. But first, we got to talk about our pole sitter. Not talk about him, actually. We've got to talk to him. Dave, take it away.
Yeah, we will indeed. Eric, do you have your mic live? We'll go down to the comms with yourself. What a fantastic lap that was, but you left it so late in the session before you could get it in. Was the nurse playing a part there?
Thank you. Yeah. Actually, I think he was nervous. But yeah, I'm happy with my time. But that was really close.
Yeah, I mean, 500ths of a second from second place man, Jack McIntyre. He got that time early on the board. I take it you're running the timing on your screen. Is it a case of you saw that lap going relatively early and you knew you had to put your lap in to try and beat him?
Yeah, I think that's about right. And I was getting a little stressed in the end. But yeah, I mean, last lap.
Regarding the track, how hard is it to hook a lap up here? Is it relatively easy to get in the flow, or is it quite easy to just sort of lose time by trying to push a little bit too hard?
It just takes a tiny mistake to lose like half a second or 1 second. It's to stay in the 36s. It's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying to Jack there in the commentary box, anything sub 37 is a ridiculously fast time. So very, very well done, Eric, on your first pole with our VRRC. I'm sure it is the first of many, but good luck for race 1, and let's see how you get on.
Thanks, Dave.
And that was Dave Marshall chatting to our pole sitter, Eric Axelsson. Very excited, as we mentioned before, to see how he gets on during the race as well. Because qualifying is one thing, a race is something completely different. And maybe, I mean, it's the first race back in 2022, Dave. Well, for us anyway, I'm sure the drivers probably have been featuring on a few fun races here, there and everywhere. But this is when it starts getting serious, isn't it? We're into the MX-5s, we're into the new championship. And a lot of these drivers will be using this as an opportunity to warm up for the Touring Car Trophy as well, the official E-Series that we'll be talking about a little bit later, that starts on Thursdays on the 20th of January. But we'll talk about that a bit later. First of all, I suppose, Dave, what are you expecting here between Eric and Jack Mack, two drivers that haven't, well, as far as we know, haven't raced against each other so far. And that's always a little bit tricky to try and gauge with so much on the line.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to give my verdict after a quick ad break, and then we're going to get into it as the lights count down.
At SmartFi, we do things differently. It starts with our 100% buyback guarantee. When you buy SmartFi token on the Smart Portal and hold it for a year or more, we'll buy back your token at the price you paid for any reason under the sun. You can borrow cash with our collateralized crypto loans or earn up to 13% interest on your holdings. SmartFi unleashes the true potential of cryptocurrencies, and there are so many reasons now more than ever to get involved. Join us today at smartfi.com. Grow your wealth and secure your future with simple, smart, and safe finance.
And there we go. Big thank you to Smart5 for supporting the stream, obviously. And me, as professional as always, slightly forgetting that we had an interview in between. We're back in the room now, Dave, aren't we? So let's just get to it and answer the question that I was asking before. What are you expecting, really, with two drivers that, as far as we know, haven't raced against each other? And there's a lot on the line here.
Well, you know what? I think this is all actually going to depend on that third place driver, Jack Smith. In a moment like this, Nathan Blank was a little bit, and I'm not talking a lot, maybe 2/10 off the pace from where Jack Smith was. So Jack Smith shouldn't really be looking in his mirrors too much. As long as he can get a good start and keep ahead of Nathan, he shouldn't have to worry too much from behind. But if he goes for an early move on Jack, that's where the gap could open. But if he starts to battle that second place driver, Eric will just simply pull away, and Jack can't allow that for that to happen, should I say. So if I'm honest, it's all eyes on Jack Smith, even though he's got two drivers in front of him.
Yeah, and he's got silver driver Nathan Blank behind, but we've got 5 red lights, we've got some engine noise, and you know what that means? We've got racing here in the AGON by AOC MX-5 Cup here at Laguna Seca, and it's a good start by Axelsson and McIntyre, but Smith, you had him down as a potential threat for the top 2. Well, he hasn't had the start he was desiring, and Nathan Blank looks to try and take advantage around the outside, going down into T1 and T2. It's going to be a late on the brake march there by Nathan Blank. There's a little bit of contact. There's more contact in the background as well. I think Nathan Blank has managed to get through, but there's a huge pile-up at the background, and Nathan Blank hasn't gotten through. Nathan Blank, unfortunately, after that contact in T2, after a fantastic start, is actually all the way down in 13th place. Heartbreak for the man all the way down there now. So Axelson, McIntyre, Smith, Axelson, McIntyre, Smith and Reed are your top 5 at the moment. Let's see how McIntyre can put all the pressure on top place man Axelson as we actually have a look at Jack Smith, who obviously has lost a bit of touch with the front 2. Laramie and Thorpe fighting for top 10.
Yeah, it sort of tricked my eyes a bit there. Double Smith in 3rd and 4th place. A little bit of a trick.
I got mixed up, to be fair, as well.
Who was that? Huge snap of oversteer by Kyle Felvers. This is going to leave him a little bit vulnerable by John Jones coming up very, very quick and deep behind him. He's going to try around the outside of corkscrew. Very brave move indeed. Luckily, they managed to filter through a very, very narrow pinch point there and not a place you want to end up 2 by 2. So they did well to get out of that one. A brilliant battle here between Mick Sutton and Paul Laramie. Mick Sutton's going to have a little look up the inside, but he's had to bail on that. Meanwhile, Paul Laramie running a little bit wide. Will Mick Sutton go for the undercut here? I think he's going to hang it out wide and possibly actually get the run down the straight, possibly a move into turn 1. Exactly what I said, actually. Look, he's almost got the overlap. Is Paul Laramie going to give him the pinch towards the wall? I believe he has, but actually, just at the last second there, he's given them room again, and now he's got the inside line down to turn 1.
Well, that's exactly what you got to do, really, isn't it? You got to force the driver, make them scared, but you can't run them into a wall. You got to have that racing respect, because otherwise, both of them would have ended up just as bad as each other. To be honest, they've both been out of the race, and it's a long championship. You don't want to score 0 points on the first race. So, it's calmed down just a touch. Some of the headlines for you. Nathan Blank had an absolutely brilliant start and going down into T2, actually outbroke 3rd place man Jack Smith. Unfortunately, it didn't come off for him. We're now focusing on Simon Reed and Nicky Taylor, 2 drivers fighting for that top 10 position. Brad Smith really pushing strong here as well. In 4th place at the moment, close to Jack Smith, close enough probably to just give Jack a little bit of something to think about as Nicky Taylor flies off the road, and Simon Reed, who obviously is the MX-5 Academy champion, goes into 5th position, and he'll be thinking, oh, we'll take that. Now all I need to do is look forward, maybe have to defend just a touch, but hopefully, he's hoping Carl Felvers can get in the mix as well here, and Carl Felvers is probably thinking such a thing as well as Simon Reed defends. Nicky Taylor looks to go out the outside, and we're saying he's one of the more exciting drivers on the grid, and he's showing why already. It's only the first race, and unfortunately there's been contact, which has allowed Simon Reed to be turned round. Nicky Taylor came off not brilliantly there either, to be fair. Unfortunately, he's been overtaken by everyone. That's why Carl Felvers will be absolutely buzzing, I'm sure, because he's managed to get through that cleanly without having to overtake anybody on the road. But still, not ideal for a couple of drivers right at the start of this race. Paul Laramie ahead of Simon Thorpe, Jones, Blank, Taylor, Reed and Press. Wow, what a couple of corners that was, Dave. I was just singing the praises of Nicky Taylor, saying how he makes it exciting, and then obviously he makes the contact.
Yeah, I mean, I might put my head on the chopping block here, but I'm going to say that looked to me...
Oh, more contact! As Simon Thorpe, he looked like he was just straight lining the line, to be honest. He wanted to go over to the racing line. The track naturally curves there, and unfortunately just didn't allow for that. Ends up running in and pinching in front of a driver, and looks like, oh, I thought that was actually a broken wheel there for John Jones, but no, maybe just a little bit of a glitch as they go down towards the left-hander that flicks them back up the hill into what I personally think is the most important corner on the entire circuit. Nicky Taylor gets a good run out of it, overtakes Paul Laramie at least, and as they go into the most important corner on the circuit, it flicks left. Hopefully no one runs too wide. That's how we saw Nicky Taylor be overtaken by Simon Reed earlier on. Just a little dab of the brakes, or maybe a flash of lights actually there by Nicky Taylor on John Jones, just to make sure he's there going into corkscrew.
Yeah, and I tell you what, you...
Oh, John Jones has taken the bait and he's span off left, stage exit left, and that is the corkscrew in a nutshell, isn't it, Dave? You either run too wide because you've taken too much speed in, or you try and scrub the speed off halfway down the hill and you over-rotate.
Yeah, so one of the awkward parts about the corkscrew is you go in there too fast and it makes the back end very, very light indeed over the crest, and you start to get on the power with rear wheels that don't have any traction, and you can have an outcome very, very similar to John Jones there. Really unfortunate, if I'm honest, because he was running so well there. A very impressive drive by himself. Nathan Blank, who we saw with a very early spin, has found his way back up into 7th place. And as I was saying before, I might stick my head on the chopping block here, but I would say the Nicky Taylor and Simon Reed incident, to me, looked a bit 50-50. I don't necessarily think there was really anyone to blame there. It was maybe just a little bit of lack of judgment from both drivers there, but I could be very, very wrong in saying that. And if you think I'm wrong, make sure you comment it in the YouTube section and have your view on what you think happened.
Yeah, and of course, the best thing about, or one of the best things about VRRC is because we've got that judicial system afterwards. The stewards can look at the footage, can't they? And they give the penalties after the race is finished, and they can analyse it from all angles with the race replay.
Yeah.
So anything we say here could be, I mean, we only see it from one angle, don't we? We see it very quick time. So anything we see and say here is pretty much useless because it all goes down to the stewards and they have all the replays and angles. But we always like to give a little bit of controversy and a little bit of sort of spice to the commentary and give our opinion, don't we, Doug?
Yeah, and I'm going to add a little bit of spice here. This is Jack Max starting to put a bit of pressure on here. A 36.6
wow.
in race trim. Now, I'm not going to take this away from him at all. I believe this is probably a little bit of slipstream, maybe playing a little bit of a part here as well. So whether or not Jack's just find himself on the uphill stretches, he can just find himself tucked into that bumper of Axelsen a little bit and pull himself a little bit closer without having to actually find that lap time in outright speed in the car. This is meaning Smith is dropping away ever so slightly, but all this is going to take is McIntyre and Axelsen to start to battle a little bit between themselves, and Smith is super consistent there. Hopefully I haven't commentated curse him there, but Smith is looking super consistent, and he is there by anyone who has a little slow run off a corner or anything like that. So this race is about to heat up, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've had plenty of commentators' curses already this race, haven't we?
Yeah.
I was going on about how clean the racing can be, and we've seen a bit of a messy race so far, and then you said about how Jack Smith was probably one of the drivers to look out for off the start, and it ended up that Jack Smith actually had the worst start of anybody. But here we go, we press on, don't we? 12 minutes to go, and obviously VRRC does have very, very good driving standards normally, but you got to give them a bit of leeway for the first race of the year, haven't you? You got to dust off that rust, basically, as Paul Laramie shows exactly what I'm talking about, really. Unfortunately, a little bit of a mistake there from him after having Simon Reed overtaking him halfway through the previous lap. So yeah, a little bit of rusty mistakes here, there, and everywhere. But two drivers that look pretty on point right now are the two drivers on your screen, and in fact, actually, in the rearview mirror, if you count him as part of your screen, Jack Smith looks pretty on it because he's just set a 1:36.94, which is as quick as Eric Axelsen has gone this race as well. So Smith is starting to put the lap times in that maybe will bring him into contention. Just a couple of tenths or half a tenth quicker than Jack McIntyre on that race. Like you said, 12 minutes to go, or 11 and a half minutes to go now. It's not done and dusted just yet. And if we're going to see a brilliant race, I would probably put quite a bit of money on saying that it's going to be between at least two of those three drivers. And looks like McIntyre's already overtaken Axelsen, so that must have been a mistake by Axelsen as our cameras dived away to have a look at Carl Felvers fighting with Nathan Blank. Axelsen has slipped down into second position. What's his response now? This is where we see a driver. This is where we see what he's made of and the characteristics, the mindset that Eric has got under the bonnet and under his helmet as well. What can he do to now get past Jack McIntyre? He might have cracked a little bit under the pressure from the chasing car, but now can he be the chaser?
Yeah, this is going to be a great battle. Jack Mack, we know what he's like under pressure. Super consistent. Oh, I don't want to give commentators curse here again, but
I think we should stop doing it. We should stop making predictions, shouldn't we?
Super consistent, but this is what we see. In second place, just wear down the driver in front slightly and wait for that driver to make a mistake so he doesn't have to push any faster. In saying that, a 36.6 in race trim is absolute blistering pace. Nathan Blank here right on the back of Kyle Phelps. That couldn't have been any closer, could it? He was literally pushing Kyle Felvers round that corner there, and actually Nathan's like he's going to have an undercut. He hasn't did. He's gone for the lunge up into the last corner. He's going to keep it nice and tidy, and actually he's going to lose out there, and Nicky Taylor will get the run up the inside, and he has. Look at that, lost a position, maybe just because of going for one of their moves a little bit too early.
Yeah, very aggressive, wasn't he there, Nathan Blank? And like you said, maybe he wanted to show that the pace that he had in the car, you could translate that into sort of racecraft as well. But racecraft, it can be slightly different. You need to be smarter. It's about the experience. And maybe Nathan Blank will probably learn from that slight mistake. And obviously with Nicky Taylor charging down and in a very fast MX-5 by the looks of it, how he's got it, he's just in sync with the car at the moment. Obviously all these cars are fixed setup, so they've all got identical machines. But yeah, just sometimes a little bit of caution, that little, take a step back, think about where's the best possibility to overtake the driver. And he was going into two. They are overtaking opportunities into the final couple of corners, but really the best overtaking opportunity would have been into the first corner. He should have lined up Carl Felvers probably a little bit more, saved off the attack of Nicky Taylor, and then really gone for the kill going into T1. But those are things that he's going to learn as he drives with these drivers, because now really you're talking about Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvers as two of the harder drivers on the grid, two very, very experienced drivers in sim racing now, and two drivers that really you got to look at to learn things from.
Yeah, exactly that. And you know what? This just proves what a class Nathan has really found in these cars. Silver class driver, but really, at the moment, has the potential to be in gold class. He really is shown himself as being a very good driver. It's just little bits like that going into that last corner. You're right in what you said. If he just judged that way, he went, you know what, I've got to run, but I'm not quite close enough. Let's back off. Then get a run out the last corner and use that slipstream down towards turn 1 and then make myself an opportunity there. Instead, he actually lost himself a position, and in that now he's got to play chase up again. But seeing Nicky Taylor pushing very, very hard at you, and it's yet again what I was saying, qualifying doesn't say of the picture with Nicky Taylor. Here he is in race trim, racing with a driver who was slightly faster in quali, and he is looking very, very determined indeed.
That's what I quite like about Nicky Taylor as well, and a few of these drivers that have sort of made the difference and made that jump into gold class. The fact that they're not afraid now to play around with the different lines as well. I mean, we saw Carl Felvers go into the first corner, pretty standard line, what you come to expect, I suppose. But then you saw Nicky Taylor pushing that outside entry, pushing the outside of the circuit on entry. See, there's a little bit of dust and the grip might not be as good, but he's experimenting with those lines to try and just gain any kind of advantage. But equally, he's good enough to just catch whatever he's needed. Speaking of catching something that's needed, Nathan Blank couldn't catch his car then as he went down the corkscrew. And as I mentioned before, that is the classic corkscrew mistake, unfortunately. The car goes light, and I think Paul Laramie's just had the same incident, actually. But in fact, we've seen Paul Laramie off. That could be a replay, because that is the same as about 5 minutes ago. But that is the classic corkscrew mistake, isn't it, Dave? You go over that crest, the car goes light, you still got a little bit of steering lock on, the car's momentum just takes the rear end away from you. And really, it's easy, it could be easy for us to describe it, but you only really you need to actually experience it to know what we're talking about and know why it's such a hard corner, because as soon as you go through that corner in any car, it's a minefield of how much input on any of your components that you put in.
Yeah, I mean, essentially also it's very, very easy for us to look at this and go, the low powered cars have got relatively a good amount of grip, they look easy to drive, but as you say, until you get behind the wheel and you try and pedal it down that corkscrew yourself, these are really, really challenging cars to drive this quick, never mind race them this quick. So all it takes, Nathan there would have been really quite blind going into that corkscrew. He's maybe gone a little bit too far left or right, and that's what's really bit him. And the time it takes for that back end to spin round and lose it into the wall on the left is fractions. So to keep it out that wall and get the car stopped, he's done very well indeed. The same with Paul Laramie. He's just come out of that left-hander before this, just got on the gravel a little bit too much, and that's just lit up the back of the car and spat him really quick. I was told the minis or something relatively low power never look that quick until they hit a bit of wet grass and then towards a tyre wall, and then you realise how fast they're going.
Yeah, no, it's terrifying when you see those sort of incidents, especially Alton Park this year at the BTCC. My days, it was terrifying. But yeah, we'll try and forget about those dark days and we'll focus on this one. I want to give a big shout out, in fact I'll do it in a second, to a couple of drivers, but we'll do it in a second because Nicky Taylor is looking aggressive here. Carl Felvers knows he's got a race on hand. He knows Nicky Taylor quite well now after a couple of championships they've been fighting in Academy and Super Touring, and Felvers just going for that defensive line. Taylor again experimenting with that outside bit of track, trying to maybe just push the momentum, try and lean on the outside of the tyre walls.
He's wide.
Outside. He is a little bit wide, so this will just dampen things down just for a second. Felvis will know he's lived to fight for another maybe 30 seconds. But a big shout out, in my opinion, Dave, for two drivers that we haven't mentioned that much, because they've been pretty much in no man's land, but they're in a great bit of no man's land. And that is Brad Smith and Mick Sutton. Mick Sutton is a driver, by the way, who we didn't really mention much at the back end of last year. He wasn't really pushing things, he wasn't making headlines. But right now he's in 5th place and loving life.
Yeah, I mean, 5th place and 2nd in class as well. So very, very quick indeed. Really got good grips with this car. And looking, touch wood, like he's driving very much within himself. He'll know he's got a little bit of time to play with here. He doesn't need to be pushing for them record lap times. He just needs to make another 3 minutes of solid driving and bring it home in a very good place. And then just get through the next race as well. I know it sounds easy. Here's Nicky Taylor just trying to set Kyle Felvis up a little bit. I tell you what, Nicky Taylor's going to have a great run here out of the last corner into the slipstream. Felvis is going to defend the left-hand side. Is he? He needs to get across left there now, otherwise Nicky will have the inside line. Nicky's been given that one on a plate. Felvis is going to have to set this up nice and wide, try and get this undercut, or is he going to try and brave it around the outside? He might indeed, but Nicky Taylor's aware of that. Kyle Felvis has got the undercut going up towards turn 2. Will he break and get the undercut again? This is fantastic race.
It is brilliant, isn't it? But like we saw, going around the outside here at Laguna Seca is very difficult, but that cutback is nearly always on, and Kyle Felvis is about to show how it can be done, and he does. He forces Nicky Taylor off the track by just a fraction. That is perfection in terms of where you put the car to force the driver on the outside just to scrub off half a mile an hour so you can get your nose up. That's, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was dust kicked up there, Dave, but that was just Nicky Taylor keeping his foot in, really, wasn't it? Because he knew Kyle Felvis had the position gained. Brilliant driving for both of them, and Nicky Taylor's throwing everything at it now. He's not pleased that with 2 minutes to go, he's gone down to 6th position. 7th position. He wants that 6th place back.
This is good, hard, clean racing. This is exactly what we want to see. And I tell you what, the driving that these boys are doing, this is all this time, by the way, they've been gaining on Mick Sutton. They've took nearly a second out of Mick Sutton in these past few laps. And look at how hard they're racing. This is exactly why they deserve to be up here in the gold class and battling for the way they are. They are showing fantastic driving respect.
They are indeed. Yeah, Jack McIntyre, by the way, if you're thinking about the gold category, or indeed the race as a whole, Jack Mack has pulled out a gap on Eric Axelsson, so maybe over race pace, or race distance, sorry, maybe Jack McIntyre with that experience that he has here at VRRC. I'm sure Eric is obviously a very experienced sim racing driver as well, but that experience that Jack Mack just pulling out here, that 1.5 second gap, maybe Eric just settling for that 2nd place, picking up those vital points really, Dave, because it is only the first race of a 12 race calendar, basically, isn't it? Because obviously there's six evenings, and obviously all those evenings have 2 races, so it's a 12 race calendar. And a 2nd place is nothing to be sniffed at.
No, and you know what? It's a 12 race calendar, and it's sort of 6 of them races really is outright on your performance as a driver. It's how fast you are in quali, how good of a start you get. The other 0.5%, the other 6 races are really a bit on the rocks a bit. You don't really know what's going to happen. It's your racecraft that has to pull your way through it. So for all we're seeing here, Jack Mack with brilliant race pace and consistency, that's not to say it's always going to go your way. So the likes of Nathan Blank, Simon Reed there, who hasn't had the best of starts of the season, this is far from over. And actually, I'm going to say it now, I've got my bet on Nathan Blank finishing on the podium in the next race.
Oh, I thought we were done making predictions, Dave. But Nathan's not going to enjoy that one, I'm sure. Hopefully he's not listening, so it doesn't get into his head. 2 drivers I'm sure will be watching this one back because they've been on our screens pretty much constantly, and we did warn you that Nicky Taylor would be on our screens constantly. Are these 2 for the 5th and 6th place? Around the outside, Nicky Taylor's trying, but he's only faking it. He's going for that 2nd apex, which he's nailed to get a really good drive off the 2nd corner. knowing Carl Felvers was going to have to run a little bit longer, be patient on the throttle. Again, Felvers having to dive deep on the brakes early doors because he was a bit narrow into the corner, but Nicky couldn't take advantage. Going over the curb there, really nicely hooked up from Nicky Taylor, but Carl Felvers managed to keep that momentum up and minimise the amount of steering input that he was putting through. We are on the final lap of the race as Nicky shows his nose up the inside, and I don't think that was really to have a look at Carl Felvers. I think it was in an attempt to try and maybe force him wide on the exit, going into the most important corner on the circuit because you have to have momentum up the hill. It's what Nicky Taylor's ran wide on far too many times this race. He doesn't run wide, but Carl Felvers does nail it also. Going into the corkscrew, it is an overtaking opportunity which Nicky Taylor is not going to be able to take advantage of. But this man has taken advantage of everything that's come his way. Jack McIntyre, second on the grid after qualifying, takes the first race victory of 2022 in the AGON by AOC MX-5 Cup, powered by VRRC. Eric Axelsson, new to VRC, will take second place, with Jack Smith, I'm sure, not too fussed about taking third place. Maybe it's not his circuit. He'll be back stronger than ever, and maybe Racecraft will put him on the podium again in race 2. Brad Smith winning that silver category, and Mick Sutton coming home in 5th place and second in the silver. Carl Felvers and Nicky Taylor absolutely flying throughout that entire race. Brilliant driving from those two. They finished 6th and 7th respectively. Simon Reed, MX-5 Academy winner. However, not really the race that he was hoping for, and some unfortunate incidents meant that he was further down. He's in 8th position. Nathan Blank, similar story, ended up in 9th, with Paul Laramie about to finish off, rounding out the top 10. Simon Thorpe, and then John Jones, by the looks of it, will probably be on pole position, although if he DNFs, he won't be on pole position. Simon Thorpe will be, so I'm not entirely sure what John Jones is doing there. But what an absolute brilliant race to start off 2022, and of course the MX-5 Cup. Can't wait to have a chat to the drivers, but of course, if you're a regular viewer on VRRC, you know that's not my job, that's Dave's job. Take it away.
Yeah, so we go down our comms box, and first of all, we jumped our P1 driver in silver class. Brad Smith, probably not the qualifying that, thought you would finish in this position, but your racecraft throughout that session and just staying consistent, P1 in class and a P4 overall. What a start to the season.
Yeah, I was actually just over 2 tenths up on my time in qualifying and ran out of fuel on the last corner. So I could have done a bit better.
That explains a lot. That explains a lot.
I kind of messed up, but yeah. Well happy with the result, considering I'm on dad duties as well.
Well, as I say, brilliant start to the season, and obviously a lot of things to come. Regarding reverse grid, I take it, it's just get your head down and stay out of trouble.
Exactly that, yeah. I'm going to go sort my daughter out with her tablet again and then get my head down for the next race.
Well, we'll let you get down. No worries, Brad.
Cheers.
And we'll jump to our P3 driver in gold class, Jack Smith. What a race that was for you. Not quite on the bumper of them two in front, but any mess up from them two in front and you would have had them.
Yeah, no, definitely think I could have been up there battling with them, but really poor start. I had a little bit of an incident in turn 1. I'm not really sure what happened there, but looks like I just got a bit closed in on. So yeah, a bit of front end damage, but obviously doesn't really affect anything in these cars. They're built like tanks, really. So, but yeah, just sort of followed those guys. Brought myself back up to pace again. I was a bit off in qualifying. Had a bit of a moment in quali where I just couldn't put a lap in. So, but yeah, just happy to be on the podium, really.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying in qualifying, this track's so dependent on momentum, and it was probably just a case of when the pressure's on and you're not quite hooking the track up, it really does punish you, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure, and it really didn't help that I came back from work at about 7 o'clock, so I had about half an hour to eat some food and up on the rig. So yeah, I needed to get my eye in. So hopefully in race 2, I can actually show what pace I actually have.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing what you can do then, Jack. Good luck for that.
Cheers, thank you.
I'll move forward. Our P2 finisher, Eric. It was a really good start of the race, but just an outside tyre in that gravel killed all that momentum down the straight, and it was just enough to let Jack get through, and then it was his consistency that just took him to the win.
Yeah, as you say, I was really happy with the start, and the first few laps I felt good until I hit that sausage curb.
Always at the sausage curb that took you off. I see, yeah.
And once he got past, I really struggled to keep up. He was just so consistent.
Yeah, well, welcome to the championship with Jack Mack, should I say? I've had my fair share of that. Eric, it was a fantastic effort here in race 1, and I tell you what, fantastic to show your face in VRRC and see what you've got for race 2 from this reverse grid.
Thank you.
I will move forward. Sorry, Eric.
Oh, it's okay. Go on.
I was just going to wrap it up there, and we'll move forward on our P1 finisher, Jack Mack. Fantastic race 1, but I tell you what, this doesn't look like it's going to be easy.
That was so tough. Eric was so quick. He pipped me right at the end of quali with such a good lap, and then all the way through that race, it was all down to who was going to make the most mistakes, and which mistakes were the most costly ones. And I think that, unfortunately for him, was just that outside wheel, like you said. So jumped ahead as soon as that happened, and then just got my head down. And yeah, like you said again, this second race is going to be pretty nuts. Yeah,
I mean, I said about it previously to Brad. Laguna Seca, it's one of the tracks where all it takes is one mess up, and it's so costly in time. So regardless of the actual pace of a driver, it was your consistency there that really helped you get the win, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's such a good little combo actually. These cars at this track, there's a lot of the corners are flat, but only just so you really have to nail them, and it's. Yeah, you make one little mistake and miss one apex or drop one wheel, and it loses you half a second, and that's such a big gap in these cars. So yeah, it was consistency that got me there in the end. I think I snuck a real good lap in when I was in his draft. So
I'll
take
yeah.
that one. But yeah, it's all just going to be about staying on the track and staying out of trouble in this one.
Well, phenomenal performance there, Jack. Looking forward to seeing what you can do in race 2 and see whether we're talking to you after race 2.
Cheers, thank you.
There we go, Jack. Podium's done, and I tell you what, I reckon the drivers enjoyed that one. As Jack said, great combo, Laguna Seca, an MX-5, and majority of the corners are flat, but you've got to get your turning points right, and if you don't, that is what is so costly.
Yeah, exactly, and it's going to be key, isn't it, in this race too? You can't make those mistakes. So which obviously can be crucial, but we've got less than a minute. Yeah, 30 seconds now until race 2, so we were jumping them out a little bit late there as well. They haven't really had that much time to decompress from race 1, but we have got Simon Thorpe on pole position, so this is going to be interesting. The highest placed gold driver, by the looks of it, is Simon Reed in that number 4, that blue and black car, with the gold wing mirrors, obviously. So keep an eye on that one. Then Nicky Taylor, who obviously will be fighting further forward as the race goes on. Nathan Blank will be hoping for a top 3 as the lights come on. The engine notes are rising, and we're about to get racing for the second time here at Laguna Seca, and it's a good start by third place man Nathan Blank, just like in race 1, but he's getting squeezed by Paul Laramie. Not as much contact as race 1, although Paul Laramie is actually being forced off the circuit by Simon Thorpe, the Smart 5 driver there, as they go down towards the first corner. It's a lit, albeit of a bunch up by the looks of it, as Nathan Blank goes into the race lead. Nicky Taylor goes second as Simon Reed is forced wide, and Simon Thorpe has dropped all the way down into 9th position after starting on pole. That's absolutely gutting for Simon Reed. He looked like he may actually be going into the first corner in potentially second or first, but Nathan Blank has taken that honour, and I'm sure he'll be hoping to keep it for as long as humanly possible. Mick Sutton, obviously 4th place in race 1 here, 5th place in race 1, currently in 7th place, so good start, good solid start by himself. Jack McIntyre not moving anywhere off the start. He's still in 12th place as Nathan Blank and Nicky Taylor argue for positions and argue for the most important position of all, that race lead. Going 3 wide into the left-hand flick up the hill is potentially a really poor decision, but actually it's worked wonders for Nathan Blank. But more importantly, probably, is Carl Felvers, who's really pushing on strong again with Nicky Taylor. We're talking about a full-on deja vu moment going down into corkscrew, but it looks like Carl Felvers getting ahead of Nicky Taylor, who had to cut the second apex. He's still in 3rd place. And Brad Smith is seen to it that he's demoted him down to 4th. But of course, he'll be on the inside for the penultimate corner. And I think Brad Smith, with that trail breaking though, has managed to hold on to 3rd place. My voice box is about to go. I've already got a sore throat, and it's only the first lap in race 2.
I might have to rewind that. How in the world did all them cars It was like a waterfall going down through the corkscrew of MX-5 with it looked to me like nowhere for them to go, and yet they all seem to just filter. Eric Axelsen, a brilliant start up to 5th, but actually it's the silver drivers who are actually playing quite a big part here, and Axelsen is back down to 7th place, battling with Mick Sutton. Jack Smith's just up ahead there in 5th place, but it's actually Nathan Blank and Kyle Felvers all the way out in 1st and 2nd who are really starting to gap this field.
Yeah, I think McIntyre is using his VRRC experience here, a little bit of reverse grid experience, isn't he? Maybe he knows just to hang back on the first lap and then really just try and pick them off, as he knows he's going to be quicker throughout the rest of the race. Smith putting pressure on Nicky Taylor. This is going to be a very interesting battle, actually, because I think if Nicky Taylor wasn't all crossed up with Carl Felvers in that previous race, I think he would have been putting in similar lap times to Jack Smith, and especially on race pace and in terms of racecraft, I think Nicky Taylor can really dance with any of them. It's going to be very interesting as Simon Reed gets overtaken by Axelsen, who obviously is going to be very keen to try and put as many cars in between himself and Jack McIntyre, who goes into the corkscrew ahead of Paul Laramie, and I'm sure he'll be starting to think about pushing forward as quickly as possible and trying to reduce that gap between himself and Axelsen. He'll be confident, though, that over the next 17 minutes he'll be able to do it as efficiently as we know that he can. Looking at the inside there was Smith, and as Axelsen gets past Mick Sutton, there may be a little bit of contact on the outside, though. Axelsen hasn't managed to actually pull it off, and that is going to be detrimental. McIntyre has gotten past Axelsen. Nicky Taylor and Jack Smith are going to go into the first corner side by side. It looks like it might be Jack Smith to take that apex, and Mick Sutton with a little bit of damage by the looks of it. He's not supposed to be coming out the pit lane. I think that's just damage coming out of the final corner, unfortunately. But the big highlight and the big headline, I should say, is that Jack McIntyre is now ahead of Axelsen, and not only ahead, he's got Simon Reed in between.
Yeah, if I'm honest, the speed that Axelsen has, it's a little bit of a surprise. He's gone backwards so quickly here. Just a lack of momentum, really. All it takes is a little break in the wrong place, as I said, and it's so costly in the timing. Obviously, McIntyre didn't have anyone in front of him. That momentum's just really helped him. Every time the drivers tripped up in front of him, he just simply drove straight past them. So a little bit of a case of the right place at the right time here. Simon Reed with a lot better of a start here, shown really exactly what he can do in these MX-5s. But meanwhile, look at this, Brad Smith battling really hard with Nathan Blank up here in front, and all this is helping Kyle Felvers just pull away in front.
Yeah, and which Carl will be absolutely loving, obviously, because every single lap that these two start fighting is another lap where the likes of Jack Smith and Nicky Taylor and Jack Mack aren't able to get through, but Smith runs wide of the penultimate corner, and as I was saying that, it looks like Smith is interested in having a sniff, and I think he's not only had a sniff, he's had the position, although there's a little bit of bump in there by Brad Smith and Jack Smith. It gets a little bit confusing on the left-hand side if you just glance over, but it's going to be tight going over the start-finish line. Jack McIntyre and Nicky Taylor also, they're going 2 by 2, and as we say in the commentators, hurrah, hurrah, by the looks of it, going down into T1. Smith holding the inside from Smith as Smith makes contact with Smith. Brad Smith on the inside, Jack Smith holds it, and luckily both of them actually get away with it slightly, but Jack Smith actually is the one who really sort of takes advantage, gets that 3rd position. Now Nicky Taylor and Jack McIntyre, which is the order we find them in, is now ahead of Brad Smith. So it can be a little bit confusing, but now we've separated those two drivers, it should all get a little bit easier. And as I was mentioning before, Dave, Nicky Taylor can dance with the best of them, can't we? And we're seeing that here with Jack Mack.
Yeah, so for all that, Nicky Taylor in front of Jack Mack won't affect the point standings. Obviously, Jack Smith is in gold class, told by them wing mirrors. Nicky Taylor also in gold class, and Jack Mack, but it's Axelsen 2 places back, so he's not going to play a huge part here because crucially, McIntyre is still outscoring his main rival. It's Jack Smith up ahead. This is going to play in the hands of the first race where Jack Smith finished 3rd. It's going to almost cancel them points out a little bit here, and it's actually going to mean it's incredibly close at the top of gold class.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how the standings are when we come to the end of this race, because of course the brilliant system that VRRC employ means that we do get pretty much up to the minute driver rankings, and the championship standings word I was going for, at the end of the second race. So we'll be able to bring you that before we even go.
Look at
stop being
Nathan
live.
Felvis.
But here we go. Jack McIntyre looking around the outside of Nicky Taylor. And again, Nicky going for that defensive line. Second apex is probably the more important one. If he can just about park his car, doesn't need to park it because McIntyre goes a little bit wide. That sort of ruins that undercut opportunity. And Axelson is through on Smith. And like you mentioned, Smith being in between these two drivers wouldn't have made a difference in terms of championship points if you just chucked the checkered flag out now. But what it was a barrier between Axelson and McIntyre, which now doesn't need to be overcome because McIntyre hasn't been able to get through Nicky Taylor, and now there is a straight fight for points between McIntyre, Axelson, and Nicky Taylor, in all fairness, because he's holding his own, and he should be. He's in gold now. There's no reason to get out of the way, as it would be at the back end of last season. But if you just look at the further forward of this picture as well, Nathan Blank, there we go, is overtaking Kyle Felvis. Felvis had a big advantage once upon a time in this race. It is dissipated, and in fact, it's been eradicated to the point that he's now in second place. Up the inside goes Nathan Blank into the corkscrew, nails it, by the way, and has managed to hold on to that position, gaining about a tenth of a second on Kyle. So these two will start fighting. That'll invite Jack Smith into the mix, and that'll invite Taylor, McIntyre, and Axelson. And it looks like McIntyre may well have just got past Taylor around the outside of the final corner. We've seen a lot of drivers try it, and I don't think it's going to happen yet again. They're going to be side by side, just like the fight for the race lead. Felvis has managed to get his nose up the inside along the pit wall, taking out a couple of cones as he does so, and it's going to be race lead Felvis going through the first couple of corners. Nathan Blank's going to have to just tuck back in and defend from Jack Smith because he's going to have his run ruined here as they're going down in towards the inner complex of Laguna Seca. It is Felvis protecting that apex, but maybe just going a little bit wide and having to come off the throttle on the exit. And that just allowed Nathan Blank to maybe get a run. But I don't think Blank was expecting it. He had to come off the throttle as well. And here comes an ever-growing figure of Jack Smith in the rearview mirror.
You know what? This is getting a bit naughty. This is. It's looking a bit edgy. And I tell you what, if Nathan realises what position he's in, he has got such a clear advantage in silver class of the other drivers behind him. There's not another silver driver until 8th place. So at the moment, he's actually racing so far above where he needs to be. He just needs to keep it on track. But I tell you what, watching Nathan here, he just wants this win, doesn't he?
He does. I mean, apologies for the involuntary noises coming out there. I thought my mic was on mute, to be honest, but I'm not sat on the toilet. I'm just tensing because this is very much getting a little bit too close for comfort sometimes, isn't it? I was just looking at the body language of the cars, Dave, and if you take into account the rear view mirror, the ominous figure of Jack Smith, which will now potentially get past Nathan Blank, both Blank and Smith's car were moving left to right into the corkscrew. Felvis was straight as an arrow, but those two cars, their body language, they didn't know which way to go. Nathan was defending and moving about on the racing line, but it looks like that Smith may well have a good run, and there's contact between Blank and Smith, and that is going to be music to the ears of Kyle Felvis, who will have heard that, but Smith gets to the undercut because Nathan Blank runs a bit wide. Here comes Jack McIntyre. He is inevitable. He will be fighting for top 3 positions as Nathan Blank runs wide and Jack Smith gets through. So there's a potential for a race victory here for Jack Smith, or even just taking away maximum points for gold class. But as I said, that body language of the cars going into braking zones, they need to be careful on that one, Dave, because it's a little bit hit and miss. But Nathan Blank runs wide. Luckily, his car doesn't snap back over, and McIntyre takes that 3rd place.
Yeah, this is looking very, very risky at the moment. But as I said, Nathan doesn't have to fight too hard for this. He's in a position where he can drop back several places and still be first in that crucial silver class. Meanwhile, let's not forget Kyle Felvis currently leading gold class out there, and he's a good point ahead of championship at the moment leader Jack McIntyre.
You know what, to be fair, I said that Jack Smith will be taking maximum gold points if he finishes like this, completely forgetting that Kyle has been actually promoted, hasn't he? So it's going to take a couple of sessions before I actually get used to that fact. But Axelson looks up the inside of Nathan Blank, who, to be fair, he was doing so well, wasn't he, Nathan, for the first half of this race? And unfortunately, the cream always rises, doesn't it? And by the looks of it, he's falling victim to the fact that the other quick drivers are just taking advantage of small mistakes.
You know what? I would normally say that, but I'm actually going to contradict it slightly. I think particularly in that last lap, I think he's picking his battles here a little bit. He just made it look very, very easy for the likes of Jack Mack, the likes of Nicky Taylor. He didn't really put up a fight for them. He almost just let them through. So I think when he was fighting for the lead, I think he was thinking, you know what, let's go for it. I've got the chance to win. Once he dropped off the podium, I think he thought, you know what, let's put my sensible head on. I've got a good margin over Sutton. I can't afford to bin this, and let's grab these crucial first place points.
Fair play. Don't mind it when you contradict me, Dave. You keep me on the straight and narrow, don't you? You keep me true.
As long as he finishes where he is, we'll be speaking to him after this.
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, he just wants his interview, doesn't he, really? He just wants to speak to Dave Marshall. Smith looking very aggressive now. I think Carl Felvers, although he is obviously worthy of that gold category, he might not be that race-winning pace just yet, and I think Smith is trying to take advantage of that. Of course, Smith, we're talking about McIntyre and Axelsson going for a championship here. Smith finishing third, and probably the closest of anybody else to fighting the top two, is needing to take advantage when he can see an advantage to be taken, if that makes sense. So he really needs to push forward. He knows he's got McIntyre behind him. He fully well knows how quick McIntyre is as well. But at the moment, he can't get past Kyle. And that is going to be eating him up inside with 6.5 minutes to go. The worst place to be when it comes to a three-way fight, Dave, we say it time and time again, and we see it ring true time and time again as well, is you don't want to be in the middle of a three-way fight, do you? Because no matter what you do, you pretty much lose-lose.
Not when it's Jack Mack behind you, you don't.
Well, no, very true. Yeah, very, very true.
You know what? I tell you who I am impressed with. Nicky Taylor, to be fair, has gone with Jack Mack all the way through the back of Jack Smith here. Nicky Taylor, look, is still there, and Eric Axelsson has started to close the gap in on the back of Nicky Taylor. Previous lap, Eric Axelsson a 36.6, Nicky Taylor a 37.1, Jack McIntyre a 37.5. So this really shows this is gonna be frantic, absolutely frantic.
It will be, and as we go up towards the corkscrew, Carl Felvers has found himself with a little bit of a gap, but that's because Smith is all of a sudden turned his attention from forward to backwards, hasn't he? He's looking into rearview mirrors and knowing exactly who's come into play, and it's going to be a dangerous one for him. An intimidating figure of Jack McIntyre has appeared, and he's very, very large in those rearview mirrors. Carl Felvers, again, doesn't have the pace. You can see how as soon as there's a little bit of a gap, they instantly catch him. But as soon as McIntyre looks to the outside here, it's making Smith go narrow and out of the final corner. You'll see that Felvers will get a little bit of a run on both of them. And McIntyre forced a little bit wide there. I'm going to take this opportunity to remind everyone something that we've forgotten to mention throughout this entirety of this broadcast, the fact that there is a driver of the day up for grabs, and they will win an AOC Gaming mouse. So that is going to be something we have to think about, David, as we entered into the last 5 minutes of this second race, because that decision is coming up far too soon, to be honest, and the end of the race is coming far too soon, because this is brilliant.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to call you out here, Jack. 5 minutes left of the race. Who is taking this win?
Whoa, no, I'm the lead commentator. I ask you the questions. I put you on the firing line for everybody else. And to be honest, I'm going to predict Jack Mack. I think we'll be speaking to him last in the driver interviews. I think he's got the pace on Smith. I think Smith will be so set on defending. I don't think Smith is going to have a sniff at the race victory unless McIntyre tries something and it goes Pete Tong. Axelsson and Nicky Taylor are swapping positions. Axelsson looking on the outside, Nicky having that inside flick and managing to keep the side on the circuit. And here comes Jack Mack on the inside of Corkscrew. And I think Felvers is just going to get in the way of Smith. He can't outbrake McIntyre. But there we go, down through the corkscrew. Fair play to Jack Smith, holding off the attack, because that looked like it was McIntyre's for the taking.
You know what? That there was absolute grit and determination. Jack Smith saw McIntyre going up the inside and braked as late as he possibly could. The car was skew with going into the corkscrew, and yet somehow he got it stopped and set McIntyre up to go around the outside.
This is Smith's opportunity. This is going to be Smith's opportunity. I think McIntyre is going to go for a move on Smith, but Smith needs to make the move on Felvis now, otherwise he's going to find himself in 3rd place before he knows it. Felvis defending hard. You can see how desperate Smith is to try and get up the inside of him. McIntyre doing everything he can just to keep his car out of trouble. More than anything, McIntyre is not trying to overtake Smith here. He's just trying to avoid contact, but keep momentum, because Nicky Taylor has invited himself to have a go as well. Carl Felvis has really and truly reinvented the Truly train here. There's a 5-way battle for a race lead, and Felvis is leading it brilliantly. Smith defending on McIntyre. Axelson gets through on Nicky Taylor. That's big news. So Axelson is just behind Nicky Taylor. So now these 3 drivers all fighting for 2nd place essentially will know full well all 3 championship rivals are nose to tail, and Felvis is the cork in the bottle, and he's being a brilliant cork as well, isn't he? 6/10 the gap now instantly opens up. That will close as soon as these drivers get even a 1/10 of a second away from each other, but McIntyre goes for the look of the inside. It doesn't happen. I tell you what, this is going to be really, really tight, and I have missed this so much.
My heart is beating so fast right now. This is absolutely fantastic racing from all these drivers. It just shows, I was just about to say, Nicky Taylor, every right to be up battling these guys at the front. Oh, and a mistake by Kyle Felvis.
That could be dangerous. That could be dangerous for him, because I don't know if it's a mistake or if he was just really keen to get over to the left-hand side. But we're going to go 3 wide into T1, and Axelson is in prime position. I want to be in Axelson's seat right now. Felvis is defending. Smith is going to try and push around the outside. There's a late break, but he's gone wide. Smith goes wide. McIntyre looks at the inside. He gets the 2nd apex. This could be crucial for the race victory here. This could potentially be crucial going down the line in the championship as well. They keep it clean, and it's as you are, which I can't quite believe. I'm actually having to take a breath there, Dave. Sorry, I was sort of decompressing. I was thinking, what on earth am I going to say next? Because I don't know how many superlatives you can actually throw at this race right now. It's absolutely brilliant. Felvis, fantastic defense. Smith attacking and defending at the same time. His car placement has been superb. McIntyre throwing everything at it. Axelson trying to just wait and see what on earth is going on. You can't blame Axelson for not trying to get involved in this fight. There's not enough space on this track for 3 wide. McIntyre goes wide. Smith has seen that. Smith is going for the move on the outside. And here we go. This could be race-defining move right now. And it's a race-defining moment because there's contact between Felvis and Smith. Smith goes wide. Axelson's been in the mix as well. And unfortunately, for both of those drivers, they're at the back of this little train. That doesn't mean they're out the race. They still pick up good points. But that was a race-defining moment. And Carl Felvis and Jack Smith making contact. That is the story of this race now. That's the headline, because it's been so brilliant. It had to come to a head at some point, Dave.
I mean, I don't know really what to say. What a fantastic race that was up to that point, and I still think we're on for a hell of a race here. This is going to come down to this lap alone, and I tell you what, I can just tell Nicky Taylor here has got the bit between his teeth. He's going to keep the pressure on the back of McIntyre here, and this is not going to be easy. Felvis though, what can I say about Felvis? He has kept his absolute cool the entire time. It looked to me like Smith went for a risky move round the outside towards a corkscrew. Felvis saw it, just held him wide. It was a clip of back wheel to front wheel which pinged up Smith's front wheel, and I tell you what, the pressure is properly on now for Felvis. This is where Felvis will be praying that Taylor does him a favour and starts to try and put a move on McIntyre.
Yeah, and you'd probably put your money on Nicky Taylor putting a move on someone else. We have to think about driver of the day. We're voting on it in our Discord right now. Normally we like to take your votes into consideration, but to be honest, I think it's pretty unanimous from our perspective of who it's going to be. As I go through corkscrew, it could well and truly be sewed up, as it looks like McIntyre. No, just a little bit of a different line there. Felvis still leading the way. McIntyre still in 2nd place. Taylor may be looking up the inside. No, I think they're quite happy with how they go at the moment, as long as no mistakes are made. Felvis goes a little bit short through the penultimate corner. He's going defensive, and Nicky Taylor looks at the inside. That could be a huge move as McIntyre goes a little bit wide. I think Felvis gets the run. Is he going to have the run? No, McIntyre's ahead. McIntyre gets his race victory ahead of Carl Felvis on the final corner.
Oh my
Nicky
God.
Taylor Felvers in third place, and I cannot believe that Carl Felvers has lost that race on the final corner. It really does break your heart sometimes in motorsport, but sometimes it also makes it stop dead. And half that race, my heart was in my mouth. That was sensational. Axelson, after that contact with Smith, comes home in fourth, and Smith comes home in fifth. Reed sixth, Sutton seventh, Brad Smith in eighth, Blank in ninth, and really we can't make any apologies for focusing on that front battle and not seeing any of the other drivers, because I think they'll watch that back and fully understand. My days. I feel like I've been to the PT and I've worked for 2 hours straight. That was incredible. Congratulations to all the drivers. It's a shame we couldn't get that 5-way fight right at the end. I can't believe that Felvers didn't get that race victory. The driver of the day, I think we're pretty much decided. I'm just waiting for your vote, to be honest, Dave, on driver of the day in the Discord. But my vote, I'll say it publicly, my vote is going for Carl Felvers, even though he ended up not winning that race. That defensive drive in both race 1 and 2 was pretty sensational. So yeah, I think we'll have to go for Carl Felvers, in my opinion, and we'll just get confirmation from you, and I'll shut my dog up if I can hear him in the background while you do some driver interviews.
Yeah, so we go down our driver interviews, and firstly we'll go to our first place driver in the silver class, Mick Sutton. A great drive we saw in race 1, just very much driving within yourself, doing what is needed to bring home them crucial points in the silver class. If Mick Sutton is there, have you got your mic on mute, Mick? Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we actually have Mick, so so we'll go straight to our P3 finisher in race 2, Nicky Taylor. What can we possibly say about that race, other than I bet that is some of the closest racing that you've ever done?
Oh mate, that was mint. Bloody, I just got lucky, I think, in that race with Eric and Jack coming together. I was by no means one of the faster ones. I was there or thereabouts, but no mean one of the faster ones. But when I saw Jack and Eric come up behind me, I was like, I'll try and defend, but if they get past, I can kind of tow along to them. And then, yeah, Eric got past, and I was turning along quite well with him and doing the fastest laps of the server. So, yeah, it was quite good. And then just got lucky. If I would have stayed outside into the last corner, I probably could have got the run. But oh well, it's third. From yesterday and from the start of today, I think I would take third.
Yeah, you know what? It's great points for you regarding the championship, finishing ahead of both Eric Axelson and Jack Smith, who, let's face it, in qualifying looked to have a little bit of a pace advantage. But I tell you what, come the race time, you were doing 37 flat, so I mean, clearly you've got the pace in the car and are definitely a threat for later on in this championship.
Yeah, I do have pace in it. Like, my one lap pace by myself is like 37, like 6 when I actually get down to it. But when I was just behind Jack and Eric, I just kind of, I don't know, I just think I switched on and managed to actually pump in the laps. But hopefully Donington should be good, because I know Donington a lot more in this place, and there isn't a common place where I decide to spin. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, it should be good, and it's great, really fun car.
Yeah, I mean, you've definitely got it with a podium finish in race 2, so very, very well done, Nicky, and really look forward to seeing how you get on a track that you feel a little bit more comfortable with.
Thank you, guys.
I'll move forward on our P2 finisher, and Kyle, I imagine there was probably a good fist pump or a kick of the table, but what a performance out there, and a driver of the day result from us as well. I mean, soaking up that pressure from Jack Smith for about half of that race, and then probably one of the most intense battles that I've ever seen towards the end. What a race that was.
Yeah, it was a really good race, but as you can probably tell, I'm gutted. I just got a little bit of oversteer out of the last corner, and I just didn't get the run, and Jack did get it. But yeah, it was a brilliant race overall.
You know what, I bet you are gutted, but I can tell you one thing. Putting a driving performance on like that and managing them laps and racing up the front, it just shows that you've definitely got the pace and the driving ability to be in this class and really challenge for the championship. And I think I'm right in saying Jack Mack, P1 finisher, it's not going to be easy winning this championship.
tell you what, that was. I have no words. That was nuts. Yeah, that was just crazy. I had to push so hard there. There was so many good little battles with so many different people all the way through the race, and then at the end, like the mistake that Cal made. Yeah, like I know how gutted he is. I've done that so many times, and it's just one of those things. But yeah, that's nuts. That's going to be such a close championship. So yeah, looking forward to the rest of it.
And I've got to quickly ask, Laguna Seca, one of them tracks that is so increasingly punishing. Do you think we'll see that sort of thing from the tracks that happen later on in the championship, or do you think it's going to be probably a case where the times are even closer still going at the next tracks?
Yeah, probably a bit of both. There are other tracks where there's maybe not as much potential to gain time, but still, it's all you still have to put the time in and know where you can gain it. So it'll be mixed. Like you say, there will be some tracks where it's a bit more nose to tail racing, and it's even more down to who's just going to make the little mistakes. But some of those tracks maybe provide better taking opportunities. There's not that many around here. There's only going into that final lap, I knew it was either going to have to be into the corkscrew if I had a good run, or into the last corner, and that was it really. There isn't anywhere else where you can put a proper move. So other places like Donington maybe it'll be different, but I'm just looking forward to finding out.
Well, huge congratulations, Jack, on a P1 here tonight, and also huge congratulations, Kyle, for our Driver of the Day award as well. What driving tonight, man?
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers, Dave.
And there we go, Jack. I mean, I think it's probably only right that we'll bring our race director in and give him a little bit of a chance to have a bit of an insight into that race, because from where we were in the interview room and in the commentary, bet down on the track, Rich, that was some racing, that.
That was epic. Absolutely fantastic. And you know what? Such a difficult track with cars, as you guys were saying earlier on, that are very difficult to control, with a lot of snap oversteer on them. For those guys to race as cleanly as they did, with as minimal contact as there was, it's fantastic. Really impressed. Yeah. Oh my God. How good were those last 5 laps? Unbelievable.
I'm genuinely, I'm going to go and watch them back. I'll have to put it on mute because I don't like to hear myself, but I'm going to watch them back.
No, it's fantastic, and what an opening round to the MX-5 Cup. Really good, really pleased. So well done, everyone. Thanks you guys, and thanks Tom on the broadcast, doing a great job as usual. So yeah, let's go for next round, eh?
Let's go next round for sure. Let's move on, Jack. TCT next week, as well as round 2 of this MX-5, so plenty to look forward to next week.
Yeah, there is. But before we do that, and obviously, Rich, hopefully you'll stick around so you can chat about that in a couple of minutes' time.
Yeah.
But just very quickly, we obviously want to have a look at how that leads the championship, because as I mentioned before, we do get up-to-date footage on how the championship stacks up. And you can see that Jack McIntyre has actually pulled out a pretty early lead thanks to that fact that Eric Axelsson had that contact with Jack Smith. But I'm sure that'll be chipped away throughout the entirety of the season. It's only round 1 of 6, of course. So that leaves Carl Felvis in 3rd place, but only 2 points behind Eric. That could be a little tasty battle, especially if consistency comes into the play. Jack Smith in 4th, probably not what he was hoping for come the first, when we actually opened the night at 7 o'clock, but there we go. It's still all to play for. Nicky Taylor in 5th and Simon Reed, and Nicky Taylor, actually Jack Smith, level on points actually, and Simon Reed in 6th. Silver, Mick Sutton, Brad Smith, tied on points. We actually didn't really obviously focus that much on that at the end of the second race, but that is a really good little battle that's opening up between Sutton and Smith. Then obviously Nathan Blank pushed very hard early on in that second race and maybe couldn't quite hold on to it, but as Dave said, maybe just sort of played the long game and managed to just pick up the points where we needed to. Paul Laramie, Simon Thorpe, John Jones and Kenny Press round out the silver category, and now that's pretty much done and dusted. Dave, like you mentioned, we can focus forward onto the next round of the MX-5 Cup, because that is the next thing you can see on the VRRC YouTube channel or wherever you're watching this on. Obviously next Tuesday, same time, but this time we're at Donington Park, as Jack Mack alluded to before. So if you want to catch everything you saw today, and why wouldn't you want to? Why wouldn't you want to repeat this? You can repeat it next week at Donington, a track that my personal favourite track in the world, actually. So that is going to be an absolute corker. And moving on from that, as you mentioned before, Dave, we have the TCT, the Touring Car Trophy official eSport League here with the VRRC as well. Fixed setup, tied in with maximum Maximum Networks and Maximum Motorsport, of course. And that looks to be absolutely brilliant as well. But before me or Dave talk to you about it, Rich, why don't you talk us through a little bit about the championship and what you look forward to?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, as you said, it's Touring Car Trophy. So we're using a single maker car. We're using the Cupra Leon Competition. It's a fantastic model. The car handles so well. So, really pleased to be able to use a single make car. So everybody's in the same equipment. It's fixed setup with minor changes, tyre pressures, brake balance, etc., etc. So, it's just very limited things that the drivers can change. But it's going to make for some fantastic racing, and we've got some pretty epic prizes as well to go in that. So we've got gold and silver class, so the prizes, each class gets their own prizes. They're the same prizes for both classes, but it's not split, it's doubling up the prizes. So first prize is a test in a TCR car. How good's that?
That's pretty mad, and that's supplied to us by obviously our partners, Maximum Motorsport. Right?
Absolutely, yeah, Maximum Motorsport. This championship is in conjunction, in partnership with Maximum Networks and Maximum Motorsport. So a huge thank you to Stuart Lyons at Maximum for providing that first prize, which is a day's test in a TCR car at a circuit to be defined, and that's won by the first place gold and the first place silver. So they basically share that day between them. Yeah, I know, it's fantastic, right? And then we've got chassis, we've got pedals, we've got sim time in our simulation training centre at Silverstone as well. So it's just, why wouldn't you want to get involved? I was listening to you earlier on, why would you not want to do it? We've also got some pretty decent drivers already signed up. I think there's 21 drivers total at the moment. We've got space for another 6, but we've got people like Dave Newsham's going to be racing, so former British touring car driver. Dave's racing with us. Jack Mack, who you've seen tonight, is racing with us as well. So it's going to be epic, right? It's just going to be out of this world.
It is, and as you mentioned, I mean, even if you're out there and you're thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be as quick as them, or those names are a little bit intimidating to me, the silver category gets the same prizes. So even if you're going to be not as quick as the likes of Jack Mack, you don't need to beat Jack Mack. Just get yourself in the silver category and you got a fighting chance, sort of thing. So
exactly. Yeah. We must be crazy, right? Given the same prizes for silver and gold, we're crazy, right? But no,
yeah, exactly.
True.
I mean,
It's true.
Maximum Motorsport might think they're crazy by the end of it as well, so this might be the only chance. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, hopefully there's a partnership to grow, but it looks awesome.
Yeah, we can't wait. So that's Thursday next week. All the drivers get to start their free practice from Friday this week. So really looking forward to seeing the times. First round's at Alton. So I've been doing some testing today in the car at Alton, and very happy with the way it's handling. Very happy with everything. So yeah, cannot wait.
And just the last thing, I actually had it in my head now. Now my mind is blank. That's a great thing for a commentator, isn't it?
Would you like me to tell you about other things that are going on?
Yeah, go for it. That wasn't what it was, but go for it.
So we've also got a time attack championship going on as well for 2022. So at the moment there's 12 rounds, one a month. The server starts on the second day of the month, finishes on the second to last day of the month for one car and track combo. The next month we go to a different car and track, and we announce it the day before it goes live. So we can't have people sat there testing. Yeah, exactly. You've got a month to do it. The server's open 24/7, and we're already getting a lot of drivers putting some times in. Not only that, there's cash prizes for the top 5 as well each month. Every month, cash prizes. Points go towards an overall championship for the year, and we'll have some trophies and stuff at the end of the year as well. So that's pretty cool. We've got that going on at the moment. We've got our fun races on a Sunday night, which are free to enter to anyone. So if you want to come and have a go driving with us and have some fun, Dave runs some fun races every Sunday evening, which we've not seen you in yet, Jack. But
I don't have a wheel, I'll be honest.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe I'll send you an Xbox controller. Yeah, we've got fun races going on. We've also got Dirt Rally Championship going on as well at the moment. We've got just so much going on. It's all good fun.
It is brilliant. So yeah, if you like anything that you see on your screen or have seen on your screen, then by all means get involved. The Discord link is down in the description of this video, so you can always just join in on that, and then someone will pick you up and take you through what we have to offer, obviously, whether it be Rich or Dave or Tom even, I'm sure. Even me, maybe, if I'm bored one day. But yeah, fantastic. I think it's about time that we wrap up the session, though, Dave.
It is indeed, and what a race that's been tonight. And if this is anything like what's going to be for the rest of the championship, I cannot wait for round 2. A track that's probably not dependent a little bit as much on the flow of the track. And as the likes of Nicky Taylor and maybe Carl Felvers said, tracks that maybe play a little bit more into their hands. So let's go to Donington. Let's see what they've got in order. But I'm also looking forward to TCT as well. So yeah, cannot wait.
Yeah, I mean, if they think, I'm sure every driver probably out there is thinking, oh, Donington plays into my hands. So hopefully, it'll just be as close as it is today, because it's been absolutely sensational. I hope everybody who's been watching has enjoyed. I don't know how you couldn't. I hope well done to all the drivers as well. And if you have been watching and you fancy watching more of it, or even the Touring Car Trophy, or actually anything that we've mentioned so far, then please do like and subscribe. It really helps us grow, and obviously it means that you can get all the great content that we've been putting out there. So a big thank you to you guys for doing any of that. Well done to the drivers. Big thanks to Tom O'Farrell as well. And for the first time here on VRRC in 2022, it's about that time that we say goodnight. My name's been Jack Oliphant. I've been joined by Dave Marshall as per usual. We'll see you next week for more MX-5 action and Touring Car Trophy. Good night.
Woo!